The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with the voices of 1,000 different species. Ambassador Tae-min Kim sat in the human section and watched the alien delegates with tired eyes. He had been doing this job for 30 years, and he could smell trouble coming like rain on the wind. Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the speaking platform. His blue skin gleamed under the chamber lights, and his 4 arms moved as he talked. The Chancellor was young for his species, only 200 years old, and he had never seen real war. None of them had. The human military presence has grown too large, Vextar said to the crowd. His voice carried clearly through the translation devices. They occupy sectors that could be used by other species. They build weapons that serve no purpose in our peaceful galaxy. The time has come to reduce their territory and limit their forces. Many alien heads nodded in agreement. The Krillians hissed their approval. The Valdani clicked their mandibles. Even some of the smaller species seemed to agree. Tae-min felt his stomach turn cold. He pressed the button to request speaking time. The light above his seat turned green. Slowly, Tae-min stood up. The chamber grew quiet as all eyes turned to him. Honored delegates, Tae-min began. I ask you to remember why these restrictions were lifted 50 years ago. I ask you to remember why humanity was given these territories in the first place. Chancellor Vextar made a sound like laughter. Ambassador Kim speaks of ancient history. The humans fought well in the old wars, yes, but that was long ago. Look at them now. They grow food and make art. They write poetry and build schools. They have become soft like the rest of us. More aliens laughed. Tae-min felt his hands shake, but he kept his voice steady. Chancellor, with respect, you were not alive during the Void War. You did not see what happened when the Devourer swarms came from dark space. You did not watch human ships ram themselves into hive vessels to save alien colonies they had never seen before. Stories, Vextar waved one of his arms. Old stories told by old beings who want to make themselves seem important. The galaxy has moved beyond such primitive violence. Tae-min looked around the chamber. He saw young faces everywhere. The old delegates who remembered the wars had died or retired. These new leaders had grown up in peace and safety, protected by treaties they had never read and defended by forces they did not understand. I was there, Tae-min said quietly. I was a young translator when the Devourer swarms broke through. The Outer Rim. I watched Admiral Song lead the human fleet against impossible odds. I saw Captain Lee take her damaged ship into the heart of a swarm to detonate her reactor and save a Valdani breeding world. I watched humans die to protect species that had called them monsters just years before. The chamber was silent now. Some of the older delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They remembered those names. The humans did not ask for territory as payment, Tae-min continued. They asked only to be left alone. We gave them space because we knew that someday we might need them again. We gave them the right to build defenses because we knew that their enemies would become our enemies. These were not gifts. They were investments in our own survival. Chancellor Vexatar's skin darkened with anger. The ambassador speaks as if humans are some kind of sleeping weapon. This is exactly the kind of thinking that leads to war. The humans are citizens of the galaxy, like everyone else. They should follow the same rules as everyone else. A Krillian delegate stood up. His name was War Leader Thek, and he commanded one of the largest pirate fleets in the outer sectors. The humans grow weak, he said in his grinding voice. Their colonies are fat and undefended. Their ships carry scientists instead of soldiers. They have forgotten how to fight. Tae-min felt something cold settle in his chest. War Leader Thek, I hope you never have cause to test that theory. Is that a threat? Vextar demanded. No, Tae-min said sadly. It is a warning, and apparently one that will not be heard. The vote was called. Species after species cast their decision. Reduce human territory by 60%. Limit human military forces to defensive patrols only. Remove human command authority over joint defense stations. The final count was overwhelming. Only the ancient precursor representatives abstained, sitting in their floating chairs like silent ghosts. Tae-min watched the results appear on the great display. He thought about his granddaughter so young, who commanded a patrol vessel near. the Rim. He thought about all the young humans who had grown up believing the galaxy was safe because their parents had made it so. After the session ended, Tai Min walked slowly to his office. The hallways of the council building were filled with celebrating aliens. They acted like they had won some great victory. They did not understand what they had just done. In his office, Tai Min activated his personal communicator. The face of Admiral Donghyun Lee appeared on the screen. The admiral looked older than his 60 years. Command of the human fleet was not an easy job. "I saw the vote," Admiral Lee said before Tai Min could speak. "How bad is it?" "Bad," Tai Min replied. "They want us to pull back to core human space. They want us to decommission the outer defense stations. They want our fleet reduced to patrol. Ships only." Admiral Lee was quiet for a long moment. "They really think we have gone soft. They think the galaxy has evolved beyond the need for warriors," Tai Min said. "They think peace is natural instead of something that must be defended every day." "What about the outer colonies? The merchant routes? The research stations? They believe the regular council forces can protect them." Tai Min laughed, but there was no humor in it. War leader Thek seemed particularly confident about that. Admiral Lee's face darkened. Tai Min had known the admiral since they were both young men. He had seen that expression before, usually right before something terrible happened to Admiral Lee's enemies. "Admiral," Tai Min said carefully, "the decision has been made. We are not at war with the council." "No," Admiral Lee agreed. "We are not at war with anyone. We are good galactic citizens who follow the rules and trust in the wisdom of democracy." He paused. "I will give the orders to Captain Park and the others. We will pull back our forces, as requested." The communication ended. Tai Min sat alone in his office and looked out the window at the busy spaceport below. Ships from dozens of species came and went, carrying goods and people across the galaxy in perfect safety. They trusted that the peace would continue forever. Tai Min opened his desk drawer and pulled out an old photograph. It showed a group of young officers standing on the bridge of a human warship. Most of them were dead now, killed in battles fought, to protect alien worlds. In the center stood a young woman in a captain's uniform. Her name had been Lee Hai-jin, and she had died ramming her ship into a devourer hive to save a planet full of Zephyrian civilians. Chancellor Vextar had probably never heard her name. Tai Min put the photograph away and began writing his resignation letter. He had spent 30 years trying to help the galaxy understand humanity. Now he realized that some lessons could only be learned through experience. He just hoped the price would not be too high when the bill came due. Outside his window, the sun set on Centris Prime, and the galaxy continued its peaceful day, unaware that it had just voted to remove the only thing that had kept it safe for 50 years. 3 months after the council vote, the colony ship New Busan drifted through space toward its new home. Dr. Min-ho Choi stood in the medical bay and watched his twin daughters play with their toys. Soo-jin and Min-ji were only 6 years old, and they thought the long journey was an adventure. The ship carried 50,000 humans who were leaving their homes because of the new territorial rules. They had sold everything they owned to buy passage to a world they had never seen. Most of them were families with children. They trusted that the galaxy would keep them safe during their journey. Dr. Choi had worked on colony ships before. He knew the dangers of deep space travel. But this route was supposed to be protected by council patrols. The Krillian Empire had promised to provide security in exchange for the human territories they were claiming. "Papa, when will we see the new sun?" Soo-jin asked, holding up a drawing she had made of their new planet. "Soon, little star," Dr. Choi said, kissing the top of her head. "Just a few more days." The ship's communication system crackled to life. "All passengers, please remain in your quarters. We are experiencing minor technical difficulties." Dr. Choi frowned. He had heard that announcement before on other ships. Technical difficulties usually meant they had detected something dangerous. Nearby, Engineer Hae-jin Nam was working in the engine room when the real alarm started. She looked up from her control panel and saw red lights flashing everywhere. The ship's defensive systems were activating automatically. "What is happening?" she asked the chief engineer. "Raiders," he said grimly. "A whole pack of them. They came out of nowhere." Hee-jin felt her blood turn cold. Raiders meant pirates, and pirates meant Krillians. The new Busan was a civilian ship with no weapons and minimal shields. It was designed to carry families, not fight wars. "Where are the council patrols?" she demanded. The chief engineer checked his instruments. "The nearest patrol is 6 hours away. They say they will come as fast as they can." 6 hours was a lifetime in a space battle. The raiders would be on them in minutes. On the bridge, Captain Jinwoo Seo tried to raise the human patrol vessel steadfast on the emergency channel. The ship was 3 hours away, much closer than the council forces, but still. "Too far to help. Captain Seo, this is Commander Bay of the Steadfast," came the reply. "We are coming to assist, but we will not arrive in time. You need to evacuate immediately." "We have 50,000 people on this ship," Captain Seo replied. "Our escape pods can only hold 10,000. The line was quiet for a moment. Then Commander Bay spoke again, and his voice was very calm. "Captain, you need to get as many people off that ship as possible. Record everything that happens. Make sure someone survives to tell the story." Captain Seo understood. The Steadfast could not save the new Busan, but they could make sure the galaxy knew what happened here. The Krillian ships appeared on the scanner like a pack of hungry wolves. There were 12 of them, all armed with military-grade weapons. They moved with the confidence of predators who knew their prey could not fight back. Dr. Choi was helping load children into escape pods when the first Krillian boarding party cut through the hull. The aliens were tall and covered in gray scales, with teeth like broken glass. They carried energy weapons and wore armor decorated with the bones of their victims. "Where are the valuable ones?" the lead Krillian demanded in broken human language. Dr. Choi stepped forward. "There are no valuable ones. These are families, civilians. They have nothing you want." The Krillian looked at him with yellow eyes. "You lie. Humans always lie. You hide your soldiers among the weak ones." "Look around you," Dr. Choi said. "Do you see any soldiers? These are children and teachers and farmers. They are not your enemies?" The Krillian made a sound like laughter. "All humans are enemies. You pretend to be weak, but you plan for war. We know your tricks." Another Krillian pointed his weapon at a group of children. "Where are your weapons? Where do you hide your war machines?" "We have no weapons," Dr. Choi said desperately. "This is a colony ship. We only have medical supplies and farming equipment." The lead Krillian seemed to think about this. Then he pointed his weapon at Dr. Choi's daughters. "If you have no weapons, then you have no value. Dead humans cannot plan for war." Dr. Choi threw himself in front of his children, but the energy beam burned through him like he was made of paper. Soo-jin and Minji screamed for their father as the Krillians laughed. Engineer Nam watched the massacre from a hidden maintenance shaft. She recorded everything on her personal device, even though her hands shook so badly she could barely hold it steady. The Krillians were not just killing the humans. They were enjoying it. They lined up families and shot them one by one. They threw children out of airlocks. They set fires in the residential sections and listened to the screams. This was not a raid for profit. This was extermination for pleasure. The emergency broadcast system activated automatically. The signal went out across the galaxy, carrying video and audio of everything that was happening. Engineer Nam made sure the transmission included the identification codes of the Krillian ships and the location of the attack. When the Steadfast finally arrived, there was nothing left but debris and a few escape pods floating in the dark. Commander Bay found Engineer Nam in one of the pods, still holding her recording device. She was the only adult survivor. "How many?" Commander Bay asked quietly. 47,812, Engineer Nam whispered. "I counted them all." The recording was broadcast across human space within hours. Every human world saw the footage of families being murdered for sport. They saw children crying for their parents. They saw Dr. Choi die trying to protect his daughters. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Sang-Min Cho watched the recording in his office. He was an old man who had fought in the Void War. He had seen terrible things before. But this was different. This was what happened when evil thought good had grown weak. The Galactic Council's response came 12 hours later. Chancellor Vextar appeared on the news networks with a prepared statement. "The Council deeply regrets this tragic incident. We are launching a full investigation into the security failures that allowed this to occur. The families of the victims have our thoughts and prayers. No mention of justice, no mention of punishment, no mention of the fact that the Krillians had broadcast their attack like entertainment. War leader Thek gave his own statement an hour later. This unfortunate event shows why civilian ships should not travel in dangerous space. The humans knew the risks when they chose to resettle. They should have provided better protection for their own people. Admiral Cho turned off the news and opened his desk drawer. Inside was a file marked with red tape and warning labels. It was titled Directive 7, Protocols for Species-Level Threat Response. The file had not been opened in 50 years. Admiral Cho broke the seal and began to read. As he turned the pages, his expression grew very calm and very cold. When he finished reading, he picked up his secure communicator and began making calls. Ticker. First call went to General Yon Su-han on Mars. The second went to Colonel Sung-Ho Kong on the Outer Rim. The third went to a number that did not officially exist, in a place that was not on any star chart. Each conversation was very short. Admiral Cho only said 3 words. The children sang. It was an old code phrase from the Void War. It meant that innocents had been slaughtered and that mercy was no longer an option. Each person who received the call understood exactly what it meant. Across human space, things began to move in the darkness. Old soldiers reported for duty. Secret shipyards powered up their forges. Weapons that had been stored for 50 years were taken out of their cases and checked for readiness. The galaxy had voted to make humanity weak. The Krillians had decided to test that theory. Now they were going to learn why some tests should never be performed. The new Busan was gone, but its message would live forever. 47,812 voices cried out for justice from the cold dark of space. And for the first time in 50 years, humanity was going to answer. The recording of the New Busan massacre spread through human space like wildfire. Every person on every human world watched the footage of Dr. Min Ho Choi dying to protect his children. They saw families torn apart for sport. They heard the laughter of the Krillian raiders as they murdered innocents. On Earth, recruitment stations that had been empty for decades suddenly had lines around the block. Young humans who had never known war signed up to serve. Old veterans came out of retirement and demanded to be put back on active duty. The peaceful citizens of the galaxy's most dangerous species remembered what they were capable of. Colonel Sung-Ho Kong stood in his small apartment on the mining station, Kepler 442. He was 70 years old and had been retired for 15 years. His back hurt from decades of carrying heavy equipment, and his hands shook from old injuries. But when his communicator displayed the message, "The children sang," all of that disappeared. He opened his closet and pushed aside civilian clothes until he found his old uniform. It still fit perfectly. The metals were tarnished and the fabric was faded. But when he put it on, he felt like the man he used to be. Kang had been part of humanity's most elite Special Forces unit during the Void War. They called themselves the Silent Death, and they had done things that the galaxy preferred to forget. They had infiltrated devourer hives and planted nuclear charges. They had assassinated enemy commanders behind their own lines. They had won battles that could not be won through conventional means. The unit had been disbanded after the war. The galaxy said such brutal methods were no longer necessary. The surviving members had scattered to civilian jobs across human space, but they had never really retired. They had just been waiting. Kang activated his old military communicator and sent out a coded signal. Within hours, responses came back from across the galaxy. Chen Wei from the farming world of New Iowa, Park Dae-sung from the research station at Wolf 359, 37 other names that most humans had never heard but every enemy species feared. The Silent Death was coming back. Dr. Yoon-ji Lim worked at the Human Military Academy on Luna. She taught history and strategy to young officers who thought war was something that happened to other people. She was small and quiet, and most people forgot she was in the room. That was exactly how she liked it. Dr. Lim had the best tactical mind in human space. During the Void War, she had been the one who figured out how to defeat the devourer swarms. She had designed the strategies that saved dozens of worlds. but she had also designed contingency plans that were so terrible they were locked away and never spoken of. After the council vote, Dr. Lim had quietly begun updating those plans. She had spent 3 months running simulations and calculating resource requirements. She had mapped out supply lines and identified strategic targets. When the new Busan was destroyed, she was ready. Admiral Sang-min Cho found her in her office. At 3 in the morning, surrounded by data tablets and star charts. She looked up when he entered, and he saw something in her eyes that he had not seen since the old war. It was the cold fire of absolute purpose. "How long do you need?" "Admiral," Cho asked. "The preliminary plans are already done," Dr. Lim replied. "Full deployment can begin immediately. But Admiral, once we start this, there will be no going back. The galaxy will remember why they used to fear us." Admiral Cho thought about the recording of Dr. Choi's daughters screaming for their father. "Good," he said. "It is time they remembered." The human government met in emergency session. President Kim Hwa-young was a peaceful woman who had spent her career trying to build bridges between species. She had never wanted to be a war leader, but sometimes leadership meant making choices you never wanted to make. "The Galactic Council is demanding we accept their apology and move forward," she told the assembled leaders. "They say the attack was an isolated incident. They promise better security in the future." Defense Minister Lee Jun-ho slammed his hand on the table. 47,000 of our people are dead, and they offer us promises. This is exactly what they did after the Meridian Colony massacre 30 years ago. Empty words and meaningless gestures." "What other choice do we have?" asked Foreign Minister Park Soo-jin. "We cannot go to war with the entire galaxy over the actions of some pirates." Admiral Cho stood up slowly. Every eye in the room turned to him. He was the oldest person present, and the only one who remembered humanity's last real war. "There is another option," he said quietly. "The Galactic Charter contains provisions that most species have forgotten. Article 847 allows for species-level grievance resolution when regular justice fails. It has not been invoked in over 1,000 years. President." Kim frowned. "What does that mean exactly?" Dr. Lim activated a holographic display. Ancient text appeared in the air, written in the formal language of the old galaxy. "It means we can demand satisfaction through trial by combat, not ship against ship, but species against species. The challenged party must accept or forfeit their right to exist in galactic space." The room was silent. Everyone understood what that meant. It was a formal declaration that humanity considered the Krillians to be their mortal enemies. It was a challenge to fight to the death with no rules and no mercy. "The galaxy will never accept this," Foreign Minister Park said. "They will call us barbarians. They will say we are reverting to primitive violence." "Let them," Admiral Cho replied. "What matters is that our children will be safe." President Kim looked around the room at the faces of her advisors. She saw anger and grief and determination. She saw people who had tried to live in peace but had been forced to remember war. "If we do this, how do we win?" she asked. Dr. Lim smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Madam President, the Krillians have forgotten what humans are capable of when we stop playing by civilized rules. They think strength means big ships and loud weapons. They are about to learn that the most dangerous human is the one you cannot see coming." The vote was unanimous. Humanity formally invoked Article 847 of the Galactic Charter and demanded satisfaction for the new Busan massacre. The challenge was delivered to war leader Thek personally, broadcast on every frequency across the galaxy. The message was read by elder diplomat Myong-Soo Shim, the oldest human alive. His voice was thin with age, but steady as stone. "By right of blood and law, humanity demands justice for the murder of our innocents. The species known as Krillians will answer for their crimes or forfeit their place among civilized beings. This is not negotiable. This is not subject to discussion. This is the ancient law that predates your council and supersedes your politics." He paused, letting the words sink in across a galaxy that had forgotten such language existed. "We do not ask for your permission. We do not require your approval. We invoke rights granted by laws you helped write but chose to forget. The Krillians have 7 standard days to surrender those responsible for the new Busan massacre. If they refuse, they will face the consequences of their choice. The transmission ended with a simple image: the seal of humanity, a blue world, surrounded by stars. But those who knew their history recognized it. It was the same symbol that had flown over human ships during the Void War. It was the mark that had once struck fear into the hearts of the galaxy's enemies. Across human space, the fleet began to move. Not the patrol ships that the Council had seen, but vessels that had been hidden in asteroid fields and nebulae for 50 years. The Ghost Fleet was awakening from its long sleep. Commander Young-Soo Bay stood on the bridge of the stealth ship Invisible Thunder and watched his crew prepare for war. They were all volunteers, all veterans of conflicts the galaxy preferred not to remember. They had spent decades maintaining ships that officially did not exist and training for missions they hoped would never come. Navigation. Set course for the Outer Rim, Commander Bay ordered. Communications. Send the signal to all units. Message reads, "The children have been answered." One by one, responses came back from the darkness. Ships that had no names and crews that did not exist confirmed their readiness. The galaxy was about to remember why humanity had been given their territory in the first place. It was not because they were weak. It was because they were so dangerous that keeping them happy was the only way to stay safe. Now the galaxy had broken that bargain, and humanity was going to collect the debt. The first sign that something had changed came when Krillian outpost Nexar 7 simply went silent. The massive military station housed 10,000 soldiers and protected one of their most important supply routes. One day it was broadcasting normal reports, and the next day there was nothing but empty space. War leader Thek demanded answers from his commanders. They sent 3 ships to investigate. The vessels found the station exactly where it should be, with all systems functioning normally. The lights were on, the computers were running, and the life support was working perfectly. But there was not a single living being anywhere on the station. No bodies, no signs of fighting, no damage to any systems. 10,000 Krillian soldiers had simply vanished, as if they had never existed. Agent Kyung-min-oh had been inside Krillian space for 15 years. To them, he was Trade Representative Kim, a nervous little human who sold mining equipment and asked too many boring questions about shipping schedules. They thought he was harmless because he smiled too much and apologized for everything. They did not know that he had been mapping their entire civilization for decades. He knew which commanders were corrupt and which ones were loyal. He knew where they kept their families and what they feared most. He had been building a network of informants and preparing for a war that might never come. When the Silent Death reactivated, Agent O received new orders. No longer was he gathering information. Now he was painting targets. The second blow came 3 days later. Krillian Forward Base Korath was their primary staging area for raids into human space. It held 50 ships and 15,000 troops, all commanded by Subleader Vrak, who had personally led the attack on the New Busan. Captain Dal-Su Ryu brought his stealth ship Silent Thunder out of hyperspace right on top of the base. The Krillians had no idea he was there until their defense grid started exploding from the inside out. By the time they realized they were under attack, half their ships were already dead in space. But Captain Ryu was not there to destroy the base. He was there to deliver a message. Subleader Vrak was dragged from his command center by figures in black armor who moved like shadows. They did not speak as they bound his hands and feet. They did not respond when he threatened them or offered them bribes. They simply took him to his own communication center and forced him to watch. On the main screen appeared the image of Dr. Min Ho Choi's daughters, Sujin and Minji, playing with their toys on the New Busan just hours before they died. The recording played their laughter and showed their innocent faces. Then it showed what Subleader Vrak had done to them. "You killed children for sport," said a voice from behind the black visor. "Now you will understand what it feels like to lose everything you care about." The screen changed to show Subleader Vrak's own family compound on the Krillian homeworld. His mate and 3 young offspring were visible through the windows, going about their daily routine. They had no idea that death was watching them from the shadows. "Your family will not be harmed," the voice continued. "But they will know that we could have harmed them. They will know that we were close enough to touch them and chose not to. They will spend the rest of their lives wondering When we might change our minds. Sub-Leader Vrak tried to speak, but found his throat was too dry. The humans were inside his most secure base, inside his homeworld's defenses, inside his very family's home. They could strike anywhere at any time, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. "Tell your war leader," the voice said. "Tell him that this is what restraint looks like. Tell him that we are choosing to be merciful. Tell him that mercy is not weakness. It is strength under control." When the Krillian reinforcements arrived at Forward Base Korath, they found Sub-Leader Vrak alone in his command center, staring at a blank screen. The base's weapons were intact but useless. The ships were undamaged, but their computer systems had been wiped clean. Everything worked perfectly, except for one thing. Nothing could target human vessels anymore. The third strike came simultaneously across a dozen worlds. Krillian communication networks went dark one by one as specialist HFY and her team executed the most sophisticated cyber attack in galactic history. They did not destroy the networks, they captured them. Suddenly, every Krillian military frequency was broadcasting human music. Their tactical channels played recordings of human, children singing lullabies. Their command frequencies carried the voices of the new Busan families, preserved in their final messages home. War Leader Thek found himself listening to Dr. Choi reading bedtime stories to his daughters while his fleet admirals tried to coordinate their defenses through civilian communication networks. The psychological impact was devastating. Every Krillian soldier was forced to hear the voices of the people they had murdered, but the real message came through Thek's personal communication device. A single image appeared on his screen, a photograph of him personally executing Dr. Choi's daughters, taken from the new Busan security cameras. Below the image was a simple question. "Did you enjoy it?" The Galactic Council called emergency sessions. Chancellor Vextar demanded that humanity stop their illegal aggression immediately. He threatened sanctions and military intervention. He accused humans of violating every treaty and law in galactic space. Ambassador Taemin Kim, who had returned to his post despite his resignation, listened to the accusations with a calm expression. When Vextar finished his speech, Kim stood. "Up slowly, Chancellor," he said quietly. "Humanity formally invoked Article 847 of the Galactic Charter. Under that article, we are operating within our legal rights. The Krillians were challenged to surrender those responsible for the new Busan massacre. They refused. They are now facing the consequences of that decision." "This is not trial by combat," Vextar protested. "This is terrorism. This is the work of cowards who strike from shadows." Kim looked around the chamber at the alien faces. Some showed fear, others anger, but a few of the older delegates were beginning to remember. They were starting to understand what they had awakened. "Chancellor," Kim said, "how exactly did you expect humans to fight? Did you think we would line up our ships in neat rows and wait for you to shoot at us? Did you think we would follow rules written by species who have never faced real danger?" The chamber was very quiet now. Kim continued in the same calm voice. "You reduced our territory because you thought we were weak. You limited our forces because you believed we had grown soft. You ignored our warnings because you assumed we had forgotten how to be dangerous. Now you are learning that we never forgot anything. We simply chose not to use what we knew." Vextar's skin was turning pale blue, which Kim knew indicated extreme stress in his species. "What do you want?" the Chancellor asked. "We want justice," Kim replied. "We want the beings responsible for murdering 47,000 innocent humans to face consequences for their actions. We want assurance that this will never happen again. And we want the galaxy to remember why humanity was given the right to defend itself in the first place. And if we refuse?" Kim was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice so soft that the translation devices had to strain to pick it up. "Chancellor, 3 days ago, a Krillian military base housing 15,000 soldiers was neutralized by a single human ship. Yesterday, your entire communication network was compromised by a team you never saw coming. This morning, your homeworld's orbital defense grid went offline for exactly 37 minutes while a message was delivered to your war leader's family." He paused to let that sink in. "These were demonstrations, Chancellor. Humans showing you what we could do while being very careful not to hurt anyone who did not deserve to be hurt. But our patience is not infinite. And our restraint is not weakness. On the main display, an image appeared of the Krillian homeworld as seen from space, beautiful and blue, with billions of innocent civilians going about their daily lives. Then, the image changed to show technical specifications for something called a planet cracker, a theoretical weapon that existed only in human research files. You wanted to know if humans had grown soft, Kim said. You wanted to test whether we still remembered how to fight. Congratulations, Chancellor, you have your answer. The chamber erupted into chaos as delegates from every species began shouting at once. Some demanded immediate action against humanity. Others called for negotiation. A few of the older representatives simply sat in stunned silence, remembering stories their grandparents had told them about the last time humans had gone to war. Ambassador Kim waited for the noise to die down. When the chamber was quiet again, he delivered humanity's final offer. The Krillians have one standard day to surrender war leader Thek and his senior commanders to human justice. They will also provide full compensation to the families of the New Busan victims and agree to regular monitoring of their military activities. In return, humanity will end its current operations and return to peaceful relations. And if we refuse? Vexatar asked again. Kim looked directly at him with eyes that had seen too much war and too much death. Then tomorrow, you will learn the difference between what we have done and what we are capable of doing. And Chancellor, I very much hope that is a lesson you choose not to receive. War leader. Thek sat in his underground bunker on the Krillian homeworld and watched his empire fall apart around him. His communication networks were compromised. His military bases were defenseless. His most secure facilities had been infiltrated by an enemy he could not see or fight. The humans had given him 1 day to surrender. That deadline was now 30 minutes away. On his command screen, reports flowed in from across Krillian space. Every military installation was reporting the same thing. Their defense systems were functioning normally, but could not lock onto any human targets. Their weapons worked perfectly, except when pointed at human ships. Their computers operated flawlessly until they tried to access tactical data about human forces. It was as if humanity had reached into the heart of Krillian technology and rewired it to serve human purposes instead. Thek's own generals could not explain how it was possible. The humans had turned their entire civilization into a weapon pointed at itself. Sub-Leader Vrak entered the bunker with his head bowed in shame. 3 days ago, he had been the terror of the Outer Rim, commanding 50 ships and 15,000 soldiers. Now he commanded nothing but his own fear. War leader, Vrak said quietly. The humans have sent another message. What do they want? Now, Thek snarled. Vrak activated the communication device with shaking hands. The screen showed Fleet Admiral Sang-Min Cho, sitting calmly in what appeared to be a simple office. Behind him was a window showing stars, but Thek realized with horror that those were the stars visible from Krillian space. The human admiral was somewhere very close to the homeworld. War leader Thek, Admiral Cho said in perfect Krillian language. You have 28 minutes remaining to accept our terms. I wanted to speak with you personally before you make your final decision. Thek leaned forward. Where are you, human? Show yourself and fight like a warrior instead of hiding like a coward. Admiral Cho smiled, and it was the expression of a predator who knew his prey was already caught. I am aboard the human vessel, Indomitable, currently positioned 17,000 kilometers above your primary command bunker. We have been here for 6 hours. The blood drained from Thek's face. That was impossible. The homeworld was protected by the most advanced defense grid in the galaxy. Nothing could approach undetected, especially not a human warship. You lie, Thek said, but his voice cracked. Admiral Cho gestured to someone off-screen. The view changed to show the exterior of the Indomitable, a massive warship that definitely had not existed when the humans were forced to reduce their fleet. In the background, clearly visible, was the blue surface of the Krillian homeworld. Your orbital defense platforms are impressive, Admiral Cho continued conversationally. 47 stations, each armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. They have been protecting your world for 200 years. Your people sleep safely knowing that nothing can threaten them from space. As he spoke, the defense platforms began going dark one by one. Not destroyed, simply switched off, as if Someone had walked up to each one and turned off the power. Within minutes, the entire grid was offline. How? Thek whispered. War leader, did you really think we would reduce our forces without making sure we could survive the consequences? For 50 years, while you thought we were growing weak, we were preparing for the day when peace would fail. Every ship you saw us decommission was replaced by 2 that you never saw. Every defense station you thought we abandoned was rebuilt, in a place you could not find. Admiral Cho leaned forward. But more importantly, we learned. We studied every species in the galaxy. We mapped your technology and understood your weaknesses. We prepared for every possible threat, including the one you represent now. The view changed again to show technical readouts of Krillian ships and stations. Every design was laid out in perfect detail, with annotations in human writing showing exactly how to disable each system. The humans knew more about Krillian technology than the Krillians did. This is impossible, Thek said. You could not have done all of this without us knowing. War leader, Admiral Cho said patiently, you have spent the last 50 years believing that humans had become farmers and poets. Did it never occur to you to wonder what happened to our soldiers and engineers? Did you think they simply disappeared? The screen split to show images from across Krillian space. Human agents were everywhere, some of them in positions of trust and authority. They had been watching and learning for decades, preparing for a war that everyone hoped would never come. Your trade representative Kim has been one of our most valuable assets, Admiral Cho continued. For 15 years, he has been mapping your supply lines and identifying your command structure. Your own security forces trusted him with access to classified facilities. He has been very helpful. Thek felt something cold settle in his stomach. Representative Kim had been present at planning meetings for the new Busan operation. He had even suggested the route the colony ship should take. The humans had known about the attack before it happened. You let us kill them, Thek said in horror. You could have stopped us, but you let us murder those people. Admiral Cho's expression went very cold. War leader, we monitor thousands of potential threats across the galaxy. We cannot prevent every act of violence without revealing our capabilities, but we can ensure that those who commit such acts face appropriate consequences. The view changed one final time. In space near the Krillian homeworld, a small moon suddenly cracked down the middle and split apart like a broken egg. The humans had not fired any visible weapons. They had simply made the moon destroy itself. Your planet is home to 4 billion innocent civilians, Admiral Cho said. They did not choose to murder human families. They do not deserve to die for your crimes. But war leader, if you force us to choose between their lives and the safety of our own people, we will make the choice that keeps humanity safe. Thek stared at the broken moon and finally understood what he was facing. The humans had not been weakened by 50 years of peace. They had spent those years becoming more dangerous than anyone could imagine. They had the power to crack planets and the patience to use it only when necessary. What do you want? He asked. Surrender yourself and your senior commanders to human justice. Provide full compensation to the families you destroyed. Submit to monitoring to ensure this never happens again. Do this, and your people live. Refuse, and learn why the galaxy used to fear us. Thek looked around his bunker at the faces of his officers. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. Some were angry, others afraid. All of them knew that their choice would determine the fate of their entire species. If I surrender, Thek said slowly, what guarantee do I have that you will honor your agreement? Admiral Cho was quiet for a moment. War leader, you have seen what we can do when we choose to be subtle. You have seen what happens when we demonstrate restraint. Do you really want to discover what we are capable of when we stop being careful? Thek thought about the new Busan families. He thought about Dr. Choi's daughters laughing as they played with their toys. He thought about the pleasure he had felt when he ordered their deaths. Now he was being offered the same choice he had given them: surrender or die. The difference was that the humans were giving him time to decide. I surrender, Thek said finally. I will come aboard your ship within the hour. Wise choice, Admiral Cho replied. War leader, you should know that this transmission has been broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Every species has seen your planet's defenses fail and watched your moon break apart. They have all learned the same lesson today. The transmission ended. Thek sat in silence for a long moment, then slowly began removing his armor. His war was over. 3 hours later, Ambassador Taemin Kim stood before the Galactic Council one final time. The chamber was packed with delegates from every species, all of them wanting to understand what had just happened. The recording of Admiral Cho's demonstration had spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Honored delegates, Kim began. Humanity's grievance with the Krillian Empire has been resolved. War leader Thek and his commanders are now in human custody and will face trial for their crimes. The new Busan families will receive full compensation. Krillian military activities will be monitored to prevent future incidents. Chancellor Vextar stood up on unsteady legs. Ambassador Kim, the Council demands an explanation. How did humanity develop such capabilities without our knowledge? Why were we not informed of these weapons? Kim looked at him with tired eyes. Chancellor, you reduced our territory because you believed we were weak. You limited our forces because you thought we had grown soft. You ignored our warnings because you assumed we had forgotten how to defend ourselves. Why would we trust you with information about our actual capabilities? This is a violation of every treaty, Vextar protested. You have hidden weapons of mass destruction from the galactic community. No, Kim replied. We have hidden weapons of mass destruction from potential enemies. The galactic community was never in danger from us. Only those who chose to threaten innocent humans had anything to fear. Elder diplomat Myong-Soo Shim rose slowly from his chair. At 150 years old, he was the only human present, who had been alive before first contact with alien species.